facility. Upstairs to the left is the ladies' facility. Please do not use the elevator in time of emergency.
Thank you. Presentations, we're honored tonight to have the Lady Sentinels swim team here. Then on February 26th, the Smithfield High School girls swim team competed in the Division III State Championship at Roger Williams University. They persevered throughout the year to secure another Division III championship title. This is the swim team's 5th championship in 13-year history, which is amazing. Please join me in congratulating the Lady Sentinels swim team. And I have to embarrass you. We're going to call your name. You can come up and we have a certificate we'd like to give you all. I know some of the girls have theater tonight, right?
Yes, sir.
So I'm just going to name the teams. Savannah. Here we go. Deshays. All right.
Come right up in the front.
Nikki Bordallo. Lily McCormick. Kaya Gaffney. Charlotte Duff. We're all in theater. Jasmine Clark, Veronica Lilly, Dhruvi Patel, Carolyn Bosco, Elizabeth Shepard, Angelina Chenault, Turin Reed, Kaylee Smith, Isabel Batone, Charlotte Dubuque, Rosemary Fulchler, Sammy Lee Harrington, and Layla Benzina. Also, their coaches, if they'd like to come up, Jennifer Babal, Nicole Zelinsky, and Tori Farley.
Push on.
Congratulations. Congratulations. Awesome. Actually, we get another one. We're gonna get back to that, right? If you don't mind.
Yes. Correct.
One more round. Now the fun stuff. We'll let them leave them. Okay, moving on to minutes. Move that the minutes of the February 21st, 2023 executive session meeting held pursuant to Rhode Island General Laws, section 42-46-5A1. Personnel to interview Maxine Kavanaugh, Dennis Bliss, Catherine Lynn, James D'Ambra, Matthew DeAngelis, and Joe Siegel for possible appointment or reappointment to a town board or commission to be approved as recorded and sealed.
Move passage. Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item B, move that the minutes of the February 21st, 2023 open session meeting be approved as recorded.
Move passage. Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Went on to item 7, appointments. Consider, discuss, and act upon the following possible appointments and reappointments. Board of Assessment Review, reappointment with a term expiring in December of 2025. This is for Dennis Bliss.
Mr. President, I move that the Smithfield Town Council reappoint Dennis Fliss to the Board of Assessment Review with a term expiring in December of 2025.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? The motion carries. Item B, Historic Preservation Commission reappointment with a term expiring in February of 2026. Mrs. Maxine Kavanaugh.
Mr. President, I'd like to move that the Smithfield Town Council hereby reappoint Maxine Kavanaugh to the Historical Preservation Commission for a term expiring in February of 2026.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. Item 8, public hearings. Conduct a public. Oh, I'm sorry.
We have one more.
Apologize. Planning Board. Appointment of the term expiring in May of 2023. This is for James Deambra.
Second.
Do
So moved.
we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Public hearings, item 8A, conduct a public hearing to consider and act upon accepting the year 19 Town of Smithfield annual submission of the RIPD's Stormwater Pollution Prevention Program Annual Report to Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management. Like to open the public hearing.
Hi, good evening, council. Thank you. Kevin Clary, Smithfield Town Engineer. Thank you for conducting this public hearing. This is the annual 2022 report to the Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management for the town's annual stormwater pollution abatement program. The background was provided to the council during the February 7th meeting. And if the advertisement for the public hearing was duly advertised in the local Observer and on the town's website in the February 23rd and March 2nd edition. No comments were received from the public by last Friday, March 3rd. As such, the town council can conclude the public hearing if there's no other further comments tonight. If there's any questions about the program or its highlights, I'm glad to answer any.
This is a public hearing, so if anyone from the public would like to speak on this. Close it. All right, we'll close the public hearing and then any discussion with from the council?
Move passage.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? Seeing there's no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries.
Thank you, council.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item B, conduct a public hearing to consider and act upon repealing and replacing chapter 126 of the Code of Ordinances entitled Animals, sponsored by Councilman John J. Tassoni. I declare this public hearing open. If you'd like to speak on this, you can come up. Come up to the podium, state your name and address, please. I'm sorry, 1 second. John, would you like to say something first?
Yeah, just pull that down.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Just a couple of things, Mr. President. This is a complete overhaul of the animal ordinance, which has been intact for 20 years. Development of a comprehensive definition section to the ordinance. And the ordinance creates a better quality of life for animals in the town, including a safe environment and proper care, prohibiting confinement in motor vehicles and the life health threatening situations to all dogs and cats. Restriction animal from the public areas designated as sports playing, practice fields, playgrounds, bleachers, and other venues. Prohibiting feeding of non-domestic animals to avoid attracting wildlife. And to remove the membership fee for the town residents for the dog park. Mr. President, this is a public health issue, and I await the comments from the public. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Dennis Tavella. I'm the Director of Defenders of Animals since 1978. I had an opportunity to be on several commissions over the years. One was a 5-member commission in the city of Warwick to update their ordinance regarding animal issues. And another one was to be on their commission to make recommendations for a new animal shelter. And then I was on a commission in the city of Providence to make recommendations on the operation of the actual city shelter. And back in the early 80s, we actually ran the East Providence Animal Shelter under contract with the city. So I've had a good taste of what's needed with ordinances regarding animals, regarding people, regarding animal control, regarding shelters. And so I'm here to support what you put forth here tonight regarding your ordinance. One of the important issues, I think, has to do with animals being in vehicles when you have extreme temperatures. So I'm glad that's being addressed in your ordinance. The other issue is dogs tied up, especially between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. Because what we found over the years is that when people keep their dogs tied up between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m., it is likely that that dog has been out 24/7, and that is definitely a problem. So I'm glad that area is being addressed. I'm glad you're also addressing cats being spayed and neutered. One of the also that you've got it grandfathered in, so if somebody has over 3 cats right now, before this ordinance passes, they're not going to be affected. But I wanted to let you know about something that was in the Providence Journal, and it was backed up by DEM because they got the information from the Department of Environmental Management. Back in between 2002 and 2004, 6,850 cats were destroyed in the state of Rhode Island at shelters, municipal shelters, private shelters. One of the reasons why that happened is because we didn't have any spay and neuter laws at the time. We can thank John Tassoni when he was a state senator for putting that through. The other thing that went through was getting rid of the gas chamber, because that was a factor in how many cats were being destroyed. So I'm bringing this up because I want you to know how much Defenders of Animals appreciates your taking notice of spaying and neutering of cats, because it's important. The other issue I wanted to mention to you that we're also thankful for is there's been an issue with traveling circuses in every state, but in Rhode Island in particular, because even though Ringling Brothers is out of business, we have other issues with Garden Brothers Circus. They've been to West Warwick a number of years. We had an issue with the Clyde Beatty Circus. They went to the Warwick Mall parking lot. We had an issue with the Constant and Bond Circus that went to the town of Lincoln. Now, when I say issues, the United States Department of Agriculture put more fines on these circuses than you can imagine for cruelty, for neglect. So I don't think the town of Smithfield wants to be part of that kind of cruelty and that kind of neglect. Even Ringling Brothers, as big as they were fined over $250,000 for their problems with elephants and tigers and lions. So I'm glad that this is part of the proposed changes in your ordinance. And by the way, just in case somebody tells you otherwise, this does not pertain to educational programs. So if the Audubon Society or some zoological society wants to show some animals to school children, this doesn't affect them. It's in your proposed ordinance. So what you have is a model ordinance, I think. And it protects people and it protects animals. So we, Defenders of Animals, as members in Smithfield and throughout Rhode Island, we definitely support your proposed ordinance changes, updates. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. President, if I may, I want to publicly thank Dennis for taking a look at this piece of legislation and to give him feedback to us. This is a piece of legislation that multiple people taking a look at it. Randy, myself, the ACOs, I want to thank all of them. It was a long time coming. This has been on for everyone to take a look at for 30 days now. And hopefully we can get this through and people will be safe. The kids on the fields will be safe and the animals will be safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ed DeMail, 75 Whipple Road. I got my dog from Dennis 30 years ago. Shipyard thing. He does a phenomenal job, a little Spitz Terrier, and I got it from him. He is the best. Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you. Okay.
Hi.
Hello.
Don McGuire, 6 Newbury Court. Thank you for updating this. I just had a couple clarity questions and that was it. In regards to voice command and 126 section 8 nuisance abatement. The keeping or harboring of any dog or other animal or fowl, the licensed or not, which by howling, yelping, barking, or other noise disturbances or noise without provocation, a surrounding neighbor is unlawful and is hereby declared to be a public nuisance, and each day shall constitute a separate offense. Will this be operationalized a little bit more? Meaning like, will there be any information about operation of voice commands, like you state in the definitions? Because it seems a little open.
Well, it's open for a reason.
Right.
We didn't want to restrict. And then we wanted to leave it up to the ACOs to make that determination,
Okay.
whether the dog was a nuisance or not a nuisance. Because you get neighbors that call
Right.
and they don't get along with the other neighbors and said, oh, his dog's barking.
Right.
The ACOs go over there and the dog is not barking. Maybe say, well, keep your dog in. It's broad for a reason.
So if it's demonstrated, for example, through a Ring camera that you as an owner have voice command, if a dog barks, not to a person, just barks randomly in the dark, and we have on Ring camera, that would be quantified under voice command under the definitions and
Right.
therefore not subject to a penalty.
I believe you're correct.
Okay. And then the other
Bob?
question I had, go ahead.
I have to ask Bob about
Yeah.
that. Right, Bob?
Oh, you want me to stand up? I'm sorry. Okay.
So you were talking about voice command?
Yes, if we were able to demonstrate, like through a Ring camera, if our dog barked, my dog's not a big barker, but he does bark, he's a dog, dogs tend to bark. If he had barked and I demonstrate voice command, he quiets and comes, and it can be seen on a Ring camera, would that then therefore preclude any type of,
Yeah, that would be perfectly fine.
Okay.
The reason voice command is in there
yes,
is not for the barking dogs, it's for loose dogs. Because we have a
Right.
lot of people going out under e-collars, which are electric collars, and their dogs are 75 feet, 100 feet away. from
my
them.
dog has a
And
big
they're-
collar,
they're-
yeah,
Considering that still not a loose dog because they're in control of it.
yes,
The restraint and Smithfield is that you have to physically in control,
yes.
which means tethered.
So
So that's why voice command,
with
we
the
put voice
electric,
command in. So that voice command is going to be something at the dog park. You're gonna have control of your dog at the dog park. And that it's gonna show that voice command is not a grounds for restraint. You can't be walking your dog loose, and
Right.
have it on voice command, it has to be under restraint.
right, but in your own property, if you have
That's
it under
correct.
voice
Yep.
command, right, okay. And then, do I have clarity on that you will, not that we use a dog park at all, it's lovely, but we walk our dog on the trails. Is it clear that you are not going to need registration any further? Or is that,
No more registration fee for Smithfield
so
residents.
you register, just no fee?
Yes, just for no fee.
All right,
So
great, I was like,
because we need to track everything.
thank you, okay, and that was it. All right, thank you very much for your time, I appreciate
you.
it, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mary D'Agostino. I'm a Smithfield resident, and I have with me this week's Observer. And there was just a paragraph in here that I would like some clarification on. And it states dogs may not be kept tethered for more than 10 hours during 24 hours or confined to an enclosure for more than 14 hours per day. My question is, if these enclosures, would this depend on the temperature? Because enclosures are opened. What if it's extremely cold or extremely hot? Has that been considered on these ordinances?
Yes, there is a section in there from the tax scale. The tax scale is what the state of Rhode Island uses for the weather outside, for inclement weather, whether it be in the hot or cold. And that would dictate how long the dog would actually be outside.
Do you happen to know what those?
That it's a tax scale that has an up and down slide, meaning that if you had a husky outside that was 2 years old, it's gonna be pretty much okay, but if you had a 16-year-old Chihuahua, it's not gonna be okay. It's gonna go by size of dog, breed of dog, whether they're acclimated to the actual weather, if the dog was dead outside for a while. So that would all fall into that.
Okay, so it's not strictly as I see it here, there are,
Well, that way, actually, copy of the Rhode Island. The Rhode Island general law states that no dog can be tethered for more than 10 hours or for more than 4.
but it does not state
No.
the specific temperatures.
How it goes by, even with
The
the
breed.
Rhode Island general law, you go off of the actual tax. scale.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Rick McKay from Greenville, and I just have a couple of questions about the dog ordinance. I haven't read the new one, but the old one seemed to be a little ambiguous. One question is, if I have a dog that's barking in the house, and unfortunately, if the neighbor is complaining, does that dog become a nuisance?
It would become a nuisance when, a lot of other nuisances that are from neighbors, like what, town council members have stated, are usually neighbor issues instead of dog issues. That's what we have found. We still have to see that there's a potential nuisance that is actually in order. So we would respond there, sit there, if the dog is barking for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, that's not considered a nuisance. So it would have to be a like.
Yeah, fortunately, I don't have a neighbor like that right now, but so if the dog is inside or outside and barking, the neighbor calls, what will happen?
I would have to go and actually
What?
investigate
Which,
and see if the dog is actually.
what does that involve?
It would be involved with sitting in that area for like, see if it meets the criteria of being an actual nuisance,
Which is what?
which is any dog unprovoked for any reason that's barking.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Do you mind if you come to the mic and just because we're recording the
Oh, yeah,
meeting?
yeah,
Yeah,
he's better to answer the question.
No, just go back and forth, but this way it'll be, because we're online now and people are listening to this on their computers.
I know, Bob Salisbury.
Thank you.
Animal control. I would go to the residents and that would be, it would be investigated that if the nuisance was actually valid. So that could be a nuisance, that could be anything over, I would say, a half hour of undisturbed barking with no provocation.
Okay, Bob, where'd you come up with the half an hour thing? Is this the half an hour? Is that written somewhere that
It's
the dog barks for half an hour?
It's not written, but it's one of our things of like, if it's going on for a length of time. If you have a mailman show up and your dog barks for 5 minutes, then leaves, that's one thing. But if you have an unprovoked dog that just barks constantly.
If I have a dog in the house and he's
Yes.
barking.
Mhm.
You come with a time clicker, or do you,
Yes, I would sit there and document time.
and is it by law, is it so many minutes?
It's what we would determine to be an actual.
Well, I'm not comfortable with that because once you define a dog as a nuisance, there are
Mhm.
certain, I'm sure, what happens if a dog is a nuisance.
Nuisance, you would be advised to abate it, which means to stop the actual nuisance.
What are the legal ramifications of a nuisance dog?
It would be a fine.
You take the dog away?
No.
So just like some sort of clarification of what would a nuisance dog be? So unfortunately, I don't have a neighbor like that, but I can see a neighbor
Okay.
or even a dog outside. So you have dogs, I have a fenced in yard, I can leave the dog outside, the dog may be barking.
Is it,
Yeah.
is it barking for no reason? Is there any sort of provocation? That's.
I'm not a dog whisperer. It could be because of the squirrels or whatever.
That would be considered a provocation.
Yeah, I just have to know
Yes.
what exactly would define a nuisance. When I have a, I have a neighbor that's not dog friendly, I can see something happening.
And like I said, it would dictate how long the dog's actually barking. But like I said.
15 minutes, a half an hour?
There's nothing written out.
Well, I think it has.
I think, I think it's discretionary.
Well, it shouldn't be discretionary because
But
it could happen.
if there's a history,
No, well, that now you're talking about a history now. Is it a history? So you get a documentation or just discretionary? Bob comes over and says this, or Bob's not here 24 hours, somebody else comes over.
Mhm.
It could happen.
So you can't do.
I don't want my dog to be declared a nuisance because it was barking in the backyard for half an hour. That's it. And that, once you're declared a nuisance, I'm sure there are legal ramifications.
Mhm.
So somehow that has to be cleared up to what exactly to declare a dog a nuisance or.
Sir, that part of the ordinance that we're
It's
talking
Rick.
about, Rick, it hasn't been changed in 20 years. It still hasn't been changed.
Well, maybe, yeah, so we
Have they
do
come here-
clarification after 20 years. But, and then this is what, I won't keep you, but the other one is, I have a copy of the old ordinance. And it's very ambiguous. And I talked to, could have been Mr. Rossi or, and they said a dog is not allowed on the public area or playing fields
Correct.
if they were to destroy it or defecate without the owner picking up after it.
Correct.
Is there a lawyer in the house, Mr. Ionati? What does that mean?
Well, the town solicitor would answer that.
I know you're a lawyer. I voted for you. Come on. Wow. Well, I didn't, maybe I didn't vote, but I know him.
Okay, would you repeat your question?
Yes, the old ordinance, well, from what I can remember, it said a dog is not allowed on a public area or a playing field if they were to, for the purpose of destroying it or defecating without the owner picking up after it. So what does that mean?
Well, the easiest solution too is the new ordinance actually does not allow them on the playing surface whatsoever.
Well, see, I didn't see the new ordinance, so what is,
So it specifically says it shall be unlawful to allow or permit any animal upon those public areas designated as sports playing fields, practice fields, playgrounds, beaches, or venues. So it's specific, it's not even allowed on this.
okay, so right now that's changed.
That's
Because in the
what ordinance
past,
means.
the
Correct, it was
from what I
very
heard, the
vague.
soccer people had put up signs that were, they did it on their own saying, which I dare feel is saying, and even that sign right now there is illegal, saying dogs are not allowed or else you'll be, it's a violation. So if that's not the law, I can bring my dog on the field if it's not going to destroy it. If it defecates, I can pick up after it. Now it'd still be legal, correct?
Right.
Urination, obviously. But so the new ordinance is going to change?
Correct, the new ordinance will not allow them on the field.
And will there be like official signs, not? just
Yes,
something
and it'll be
put
with
up?
the ordinance stated on it and the fines as well.
And the playing field, let's say a deer field, like on a baseball field. I used to umpire with your brother. So baseball fields, the field is designated as a very restricted area
Mhm.
or designated area.
Mhm.
Deer field. What is the playing?
In the
Is it
main-
by the bandstand? Is it on the side? I mean.
Well, the main area in Deerfield, the large grass area where the soccer fields are, that's the whole playing surface.
Okay, so the whole area,
Correct.
including the concession stand area. Where the
Yes.
kids are.
Yes, correct.
So is it everywhere there's grass?
No, playing surface or practice field. So if the other area that's outside the grass, so the area that's by the parking
Well, the
lot,
whole area is grass except for the sidewalk. So, and I'm very careful. If I walk my dog, but then walk along the edge of the field, where it's not playing field, or by the bandstand, where
Yeah.
people do bring their dogs during
Mhm.
concerts, is that considered a playing field?
no, it is not.
How would you designate what a playing field is there? Like in a baseball field, you have lines, you know what a baseball
Right,
field is,
but-
a football field.
Do you want to state this, Bobby?
Well, I'm
It's
concerned
it's the playing surface of where the kids play on. It's the grass area that's in the middle. I'm not sure what you're asking me, sir.
I'm asking you, when I take my dogs for a walk, I live right in it.
Mhm.
I go up to the dirt road.
Yep.
Do I have to walk on the street, or can I walk along the edge of the field? You know, can I walk by the bandstand?
You can walk by the bandstand, you just can't walk on the field.
Okay. I'd just like to know exactly exactly what the field is.
So where it's standing now is that all of that grass area of the playing field can be used for any sports. From lacrosse to soccer, they get set up in all different directions. So any part of the field,
Okay, so from the sidewalk.
from the
to-
sidewalk onto the field where that wooden rail is,
Yeah,
cannot
that-
be on.
How about by the work area, the work area, the woods going around this way? Can I walk around the field this way?
You can walk all the way around as long as you're either on the sidewalk or on the actual roadway around the field.
There's not a road.
There is a roadway because I go down there and you drive it
Well,
every
you
day.
can't drive it because you'd be driving on the grass or on the woods.
No, you can walk from, I drive my vehicle from
Well, I
Behind-
can't have a vehicle there.
behind Deerfield Park, where Lisa Ann is. I turn around there and drive all the way back or.
I think definitely too, sir, an easy solution to at a point, once we move forward with this, I know Bobby would be more than happy to meet you out there and show you the perimeter.
As long as what he shows me is.
He's the one that's enforcing it with the police department. So if he says it, it's what goes.
Okay, so he's the.
Thank you.
And there will also be signs that clearly indicate where animals can be walked and where they can't.
Correct, sir. And we will state the ordinance and the fines and everything on it.
Matt Domenico, 5 Robin Hollow Circle. I'm also the president of Smithfield Youth Soccer, and I am the one who picks up the crap when the dog poops and nobody picks it up. So on behalf of the 700 plus participants in our youth soccer program, this has been the bane of our existence. Despite the great efforts of Bobby Kane and his amazing staff, we routinely are picking up dog crap from the soccer fields. We have kids from pre-K to middle school. That's not what we sign up for. We're a volunteer organization. I know this is a comprehensive ordinance. My piece is a small bit of this, but it's disgusting. And I know this isn't every dog owner, but this is a safety hazard. It's disgusting. We've had confrontations when we address dog owners out in the field, ask them to pick up the crap. I can't believe we're having this conversation, but that's what we do. There've been confrontations, multiple. The surface needs to be free of dog poop. And I hope other organizations in town have supported this ordinance as well. It's time. I'm tired of having to address adults about how to clean up after themselves and their dogs. And there are even some people get very creative and put the blue dog poop bags and they hang them from the tree branches. So those are my favorites to clean up. So SYSA is in full support of this ordinance and we hope you are as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
The old ordinance did address that, and it did say what I said. It was illegal for dogs to defecate on the field without the owners picking up. So the new ordinance won't change that at all. So it's the owner's responsibility, and I totally agree. But the new ordinance doesn't change that.
One quick thing, John, before you start, I'm sorry, I just want to share too, as Matt mentioned, we have documentation from Smithfield Girls Softball as well as Smithfield Little League in support of that as well. And their concerns that were provided to the clerk for the record as well.
John Serapilio, Old County Road. I have a copy of the ordinance. I picked it up Monday. Has there been any changes, additions or corrections on it.
There'll be potentially some amendments, but nothing drastic to what you might have, sir.
126-8 nuisance abatement item, paragraph B. The last sentence, the owner of such animal convicted of violating this provision may be punished by payment of the following fine. There's no amount listed.
John, can you repeat that?
Paragraph B, under nuisance abatement, 126-8, the last sentence.
And actually, John, what I can see here is, and I was just talking to the councilwoman, we can actually strike that because it lists the fines later down the road, down in the ordinance.
Okay.
Great catch, John. Thank you.
Question. Are you going to put a parking lot in to go along with this crosswalk? There's no parking on that road. Speed limit's 40 miles an hour. That's a dangerous area for a crosswalk if you can't park off the road. How are you going to do this?
What are you talking about, John? The dog park?
It was in the observer. You're talking about putting a crosswalk so
Correct.
people can cross the street.
Correct.
There's no parking up there.
Yes, there is.
It's a 40 mile an hour speed.
No, you have the industrial park, John. Right across the street from the dog park is the industrial park. That's where people have been parking. That's why we wanted to put a crosswalk.
You're not gonna put it, you're not, people just parking on the road now. That's what I'm talking about. There's no parking up in that area.
Well, we just added how many spots?
But you're
12 to
still
15.
parking on the street, John.
No, we just added 15 parking spots. We got more land from Brian and we put more parking up.
I understand that, but the crosswalk, where are they gonna park? Is there a parking lot that they're gonna park and be able to cross the Farnham Pike there? I say it's 40 miles an hour. If the normal people drive 40, when they I'm driving 40 and I'm getting tailgate, it's like 3 inches from my bumper because I'm not going fast enough. And that's coming around a corner over there. It's dangerous area to be parking on the street, and they're parking on the street. I've seen them. You probably have
If I
too.
may also add just to this conversation, a few weeks ago at the Traffic Safety Commission meeting, this came before us as something to also look into. And we were looking into, and just put your concerns at ease. We were going to request a traffic study be done through the state to see the feasibility first. So, just to kind of put that as like a.
Right, it's their road. You have to get okay with them to start with.
Well, yep, and that's why they're moving forward with a traffic study.
Okay, who's responsible for what the gentleman just said earlier about the dog poop, smoking, vaping? Who's going to monitor that? Mr. Salzman.
Bob, Mr. Salisbury.
Police department.
Well, on the smoking, the vaping, the police department will be handling that, but Bob will be in charge of the animals as well as being.
We're getting
enforced by-
Bob a red jumpsuit. So he can be seen from wherever.
Is there a budget for this dog park?
Say it again, please.
Budget for the dog park?
Hey, this is a public hearing for the ordinance for the.
Yeah, I know. Who's maintaining? the
Public
dog-
comment, we can talk about the dog park.
Okay.
Oh, it's in the, all right, I apologize. Is there a budget?
There's no official budget. It's part of the operations from Parks and Recreation.
Is anyone checking on the out of towners that they paid their $25?
Yes, sir.
You don't have to show an ID or anything?
Well, I mean, I can't have somebody sitting there 24/7, but
I
I know Bobby and as well as Tom Taylor go by there very often and document who is not a member, and they are followed up on.
Okay, well, I know there's a whole bunch of ordinances on the books here, but enforcement of the ordinances, I talked about this December of 2019. That was my last town council meeting, but we don't enforce the ordinances in some of the zoning that we have now. I mean, you guys all drive down here, right? If you ever see any violations as you drive down here, every street has them. And I'm just saying that now we have a whole new ordinance rewrite, but just as long as it gets enforced. Because we're not doing a good job on the rest of them.
Good evening, Tom Hodgkins, 200 Farnham Pike. I think with this ordinance, I think the overwhelming majority of dog owners, animal owners in town are responsible and are doing the right thing. Where this ordinance, the intent is to attempt to legislate some sort of common sense here, but I think the result is that we have some excessive and unnecessary government intrusion here in people's private lives. I want to speak first to the dialogue that's been had about nuisance and so forth. The whole conversation that just went on is not what this law says. It doesn't say anywhere these time, 30 minutes, what a news, anything. There's no description of that. So what we're left with is a vague ordinance about what a nuisance is based on one complaint from one person. But I'd like to just walk through this for a moment. If we start off at the old ordinance, nuisances are dealt with in 126:34. A nuisance in paragraph A under the old ordinance is the keeping or harboring of any dog or any other animal, etc., which by habitual howling, yelping, barking, or otherwise disturbs or annoys another person. And then if you go down to paragraph C, wherever it shall be affirmed in writing by 3 or more people having separate residences regularly employed by town and so forth, there's a enforcement procedure. If you go to what's been proposed in the new ordinance, which is at 126:8, paragraph A, the keeping or harboring of any dog, etc., which by howling, yelping, barking, or other noise disturbs or annoys without provocation a surrounding neighbor is unlawful and is hereby declared to be a public nuisance. The term habitual has been deleted. So this is one event, one report. The dog's a nuisance under the law. There's no definition of nuisance. Without provocation, what does that mean? We go back to the definition section of provocation. The definition of provocation is the act of provoking. Doesn't provide us a lot of help there on the definition. Something that provokes, especially by inciting, instigating, angry, or irritating, but not limited by that. I think anyone who's had a dog knows that anything can provoke a dog, a squirrel, somebody walking up to it, anything. So without provocation is really a meaningless term in the ordinance there. And then, oh, by the way, there was discussion earlier about voice control or voice command. That only has to do with the dog park. Voice control has nothing to do with the determination of a nuisance. So if we go back to 126:8 in the new ordinance, whenever it shall be affirmed in writing by one person. So we've knocked it down from 3 people in writing to 1 person. So one person makes one complaint, your dog's a nuisance, and it's unlawful. We add that to what happens. (126:10) investigation and right of entry. The animal control warden or any police officer of this town shall have the authority at all reasonable times to enter upon any premises, but such authority should not include the right to enter any residence on such premises, to examine a dog or other animal which is allegedly in violation of a provision of this article. Such officers shall have the further authority to take possession of any dog or other animal and remove it from such premises. So if we play down here, what's proposed in the ordinance, what's possible in the ordinance. One person makes one complaint. Perhaps the animal control officer, perhaps somebody else in the police department is not here tonight, so we don't know what their interpretation of law is going to be. One complaint, one person, they pull up in the driveway, maybe you're home, maybe you're not. Your dog probably, if the dog's outside, the dog probably barks when someone pulls into the driveway because that's what dogs do. The dog barks, declared a nuisance, removed from your property, no due process, no evidence, no investigation, no nothing. That's what the law provides for, the way it's written. And you may say to me, you know, well, Hodgkins, that's a ridiculous interpretation of the law. But if that's a ridiculous interpretation of the law and we're not going to do it, then we should rewrite it in a way that's more reasonable. I don't think anybody really wants that to be the outcome here, but of the situation that I just provided you. But it is the outcome that's right now provided in the ordinance. I think that a more reasonable approach to the barking dog would be for there to be a complaint procedure to put back in the word habitual, other words that would make sense, so things like prolonged, persistent, etc. For there to be a complaint, an investigation, notice to the owner, perhaps presentation of a complaint to the municipal court, and determination of the violation there. I think that to the extent that the ordinance would provide seizure or impoundment of somebody's animal, I think that should be vastly limited to a situation that's only based on an emergency and based on an immediate threat that's observed by either the animal control officer or the police, an immediate threat to public safety. There's really no other way that I could see any justification for somebody coming on your property and taking your dog. I mean, that's just, it's scary. I mean, a neighbor versus neighbor situation. So I hope that, and there are other towns that have these type of more reasonable approaches. Newport's one. I think we could look at their ordinance. So I hope we can change that nuisance provision. On the removal of animal waste, I mean, I think all of us in this room can agree that that should be part of the law. What concerns me is 126 8 F1, the means of removal, which doesn't have anything to do with actual removal, but it mandates by law that you have to carry some means of removal. So, I mean, if you're like me, usually when you go out, you take the dog out, you have one bag on, you have the dog, and then the dog does it and whatever. So then I'm walking the dog home. Now I'm in violation of the ordinance because I took one bag with me. And I just think this presents a whole other host of issues about complaints that people may receive, police stops. I mean, if I don't have a bag visible on me, am I going to get stopped by the police? I don't know. It just opens up a whole nother can of worms. The other description of what you need to have on you, quote, pooper scooper, plastic bag, latex, or other type of glove, etc. I think that's just unenforceably vague. I mean, the etc. I mean, in the worst case scenario, I think, you know, God's given us all two removal tools that we have on us at all times. I mean, but and we can go down the absurd like that, but it just seems like an unenforceable provision, an unnecessary provision. Just make it the law that somebody has to pick up after their dog. I think another issue on this is regulating people, not animals, is that the enforcement provision, so 126.8 F2 enforcement, which one person makes a complaint. They also by law now have to testify to promise to be available in court. And if they don't come to court, now they're subject to a fine. So you make a complaint about somebody and now you don't come to court and now you're subject to a fine, you know, because you had to go to work or daycare or whatever. I mean, that just doesn't seem to make sense either. That, I mean, I think that our municipal court can handle things like issuing subpoenas to people or whatnot if they need to be there. And then finally, the other provision I wanted to bring up is the coyote, so-called coyote provision, which is 12646. I mean, I think in general, the issue here is, you know, we're trying to regulate human behavior here with the coyotes. I mean, the issue with the coyotes is it has been caused by humans because we keep destroying their habitat and open space in town. And that's why we have these issues. But I think there should be an exception on paragraph C of 12646 for agricultural and farm animals to provide some leeway there in terms of having feed or otherwise things outside. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to? Yeah.
Mayor, Certified Whipple, what town council John Tonsoni said about we got parking in the
I can't
industrial.
hear you.
We got parking in the industrial is very good, but just the terminology, I think what the other gentleman was trying to say is, which wasn't said, you get the crosswalk, that's good. But Farnham Pike is, they come fast, and even if you have a dog or an elderly person crosses, the way they travel, you see, oh, it's clear, and then before you know it, there's a car. As far as that goes, and you don't want to start running traffic. That's just common sense. Farnham Pike, they're coming up fast. I understand his position, and I understand Councilman John Tonsoni's. I'm just trying to throw in a common sense. It is a major, they fly.
Thank you. Yes.
How are you? Bob Salisbury. I just want to thank the town council for taking time to look at these ordinances. I've been going into my 23rd year. None of these have changed in that time. We have added the dog park since it was just created. And we did add a change to the nuisance, which was Deerfield Park when Deerfield Park was actually created too. But I did my due diligence over the last 5 years, collecting all this data from 3 of the top animal control divisions in the state, which would be East Providence, North Providence, and Barville. And all of them run smoothly with what they have and what I propose to them. Are there any questions on any of the ordinance?
No, I just want to thank you, Bob, for spending the time and going through this and giving us your feedback. I really appreciate that.
Oh, no problem, sir.
You know, no piece of legislation is 100%.
Bob, I have a question for you. Just curious, how many last year, let's just go with last year, how many stray dogs and cats did you guys pick up?
Last year was a slow year. I think we did 110 total.
110 of both?
Yeah,
types?
total. Yes.
Okay.
We're
Do
usually over 200.
Okay,
We were thinking that we were going to see a lot of turn-in animals from COVID. We didn't.
okay, that's
So-
good. Do we euthanize animals currently?
That would be with none of the shelters in Rhode Island are a no-kill. So if
So we do?
an animal has to be because of safety, public safety, I cannot adopt out an animal that's bitten somebody.
But in any other case, though? No, you don't do that. Okay.
Nope.
What's the primary reason for animal impoundment in Smithfield?
Stray, running loose.
Stray?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, Rick McKay again. Yeah, I've been in town since 1982, and I really want to thank the town for the work they have done with the animals and finally getting the dog park. Not that I use it that much, but thank everybody who's been part of that. And it's probably still a work in progress, but I'm sure you'll be working on it longer after I'm gone. And I'd like to thank Bob, who I just met, and animal control officers for the work that they continually do with the animals in town. I think it's they do a really good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Now, any discussion with the council?
I have a few comments I would just like to make. I do want to thank Councilman Tassoni and everyone who worked on this. There's certainly a lot of good pieces in this ordinance, but I am here to scrutinize everything. So that's what I did. So I did find some things that I would suggest maybe making changes. The first thing regarding the 3 dog and 3 cat per residence limit, except as permitted by an animal control officer and health representative. Just so everyone knows, the 3 dog limit was already in place. The 3 cat limit is new. I personally have an issue with this, just to put it bluntly. Who are we to tell anyone that they can't have more than 3 animals? You know, say for instance, we have somebody who lives on 20 acres of land who owns 5 cats, 7 dogs. Why should they not have the right to have said animals? Maybe they live on a farm. Cats are great at pest control. Dogs are great protection. Our pets are our companions. All right, so some might say, okay, but what about the scenario when a person lives in a 600 square foot apartment and they have 5 dogs, 5 cats? Obviously, this is not the ideal situation for these animals. The good news, however, this ordinance already provides for the protection of dogs and cats in section 126.6, cruelty to animals under examples of cruel treatment, allowing animals to live in crowded conditions. People found in violation of that rule will be penalized. Therefore, I suggest that we get rid of those limitations as they are not needed. This ordinance also does not provide for the protection of animals and hoarding situations, you know, animals such as guinea pigs, hamsters, other rodents, snakes, lizards, etc. I do know there was lizards in that hoarding situation in 2008. So we may want to consider adding those provisions. The second thing, Article 6, feeding of non-domesticated animals, section 126.46C. Exceptions. These state that you cannot have a bird feeder more than 100 feet away from your residence. Again, if somebody has a large property with gardens, say for instance, you know, they have a bird feeder 150 feet away from their house, they're going to get fined $100. That seems a little excessive to me. This is a small issue, but an issue nonetheless of where, you know, I think the town could maybe mind their own business. Number 3, Bob, I don't know if can you answer this for me? What does disposed of mean? I mean, there's disposed of in several areas in this ordinance. Does that mean euthanize?
It would depend on what you're talking about.
Okay,
If
so
it's-
for instance, harboring of cats, impoundment of excessive cats. The last sentence says, basically, if you know, you don't, I'm not going to read the whole sentence. It says, then said cats can be disposed of at the discretion of the animal control officer in the same manner as provided by the article for dogs. So I just want a definition of what that means.
Well, dispose of is going to be the actual outcome of the actual animal. That could be an adoption. It could be if you're taking cats from a house that are all ill and a vet has given us the go ahead that euthanasia would be the best option.
So euthanasia is an option in that,
If we don't euthanize without a vet's approval.
Well, again, I'm just really concerned about what that means because
Yes.
there's several instances of that term here. So, okay, so to go along with that, in Article 7, spay and neuter programs, it states, due to the large number of stray and abandoned cats, euthanasia is not a cost-effective, acceptable, or ethical solution to the threats of public health and safety posted by large population of domesticated animals. And if we move further in the ordinance to Article 8, Section 126.54, impoundment of excessive cats, basically it just discusses what happens when an owner harbors more than 3 cats. Basically says at the expiration of the 5-day impoundment, 30-day foster adoption period, if the owner has not reduced the number of cats in accordance with the limits set forth in this division, or if they have not been adopted or fostered, then the cats can be disposed of, like what I was just saying. So that seems sort of like a contradiction.
Yes, the Smithfield Animal Shelter will not euthanize a healthy animal. That's adoptable.
Okay, so we might want to, well, first of all, I think we might want to add in the definition section what disposed of means, but then you might want to finagle that
Okay.
section, because if that's not an option for healthy animals, then we might want to get rid of that.
Okay.
So, okay, and then, Article 3, Section 12628, impoundment of dogs. Any dog, found running at large shall be taken up by the animal control officer and impounded to the shelter. They're confined in a humane manner for a period of not less than 7 days. And will therefore thereafter be disposed of in a humane manner if not claimed by his owner. So basically, it's saying after 7 days, it could be. It, you know, obviously the ideal would be always the first
Yes.
option, you try to adopt it out,
Yes,
right?
exactly,
Okay,
exactly.
all right. Just a couple other things. In Article 3, there are a few places again where the term disposed of is used, and a case where humanely destroyed is used. I'm concerned that these terms are being used interchangeably. We need to define what these are and use the same terms consistently.
Okay.
So humanely destroyed would mean euthanasia, I would
Yes,
think.
exactly, yes.
Okay. All right, so I should find out where that is because, and then in Rhode Island state law, just an FYI, animals, the term vicious is used. I know, Randy, you changed one section from vicious to aggressive, but in state law, it says it vicious, so we might want to be consistent, use vicious.
Well, vicious is a different scenario, and I think Bob can talk about that. That falls into a whole nother category versus
Well,
aggressive.
The actual Rhode Island general law for vicious dogs is being changed as we speak.
Oh, it is.
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
good
and
to
it's
know.
gonna be labeled as dangerous dogs.
Okay, great.
Yes.
And Article 8, harboring of cats. Section 12654 talks about somebody with more than 3 cats. The cats will be then impounded by the officer not exceeding 5 days, during which period such cat may be returned to the owner upon proof that said owner has reduced the number of cats within their dwelling. My question is, how can the person reduce the number of cats if they've all been impounded and they're not in their possession? So what's the process there?
They could call family members to take them. They could sign them over to the actual shelter so we can move forward with finding homes for them.
Okay. I think that was it. We might want to define what unvaccinated means, add that as a definition as well.
What, unvaccinated?
Like, does it mean just rabies?
What, an unvaccinated animal is an animal that's not up to date on rabies vaccination.
So it's just the rabies, it's not
Yes.
any other shot? Okay.
No,
Well,
because by law, the only vaccination needed by law is rabies.
Interesting, okay.
Yeah.
I'm just asking these things, the worst case scenario, someone's dog gets taken away, so I want everything to be crystal clear. So you might wanna add that as well as the definition, just, it means just rabies.
Okay.
But good job, you
Right.
know, on the
And
other stuff.
just the scenarios that were brought up tonight
Mhm.
in my 22 plus years have never happened in town.
Which
I've
scenarios?
never had to walk onto somebody's property to take a dog from barking. I've spoken to owners, they've negated it
Mhm.
and so.
Okay, that's
Okay.
great.
And that was under the old ordinances. And the reason we went from 3 to 1, because there were numerous people who only had 1 complainer or 2 people, nobody else would step up. So now
Mhm.
these people have to live with an actual nuisance next to them.
Right,
And there's nothing that we can actually do about it.
sure.
Okay.
Thank you, Bob.
Well,
I just like my fellow council members to consider the limit.
Ed DeMille, 75 Whipple. I think the terminology, that one word disposed of when a dog or a cat is like a human to the family. Bob does a great job. Dennis does a great job. That word has to be changed. Gingerly put to sleep if need be. I think it's just that one word disposed of sounds like you dispose of your trash. That one word should be taken out. That's
The
all.
problem is it means different things. That's why we need to define it. That's an issue, obviously, so, yeah.
Any other discussion from the?
I think that, listening to the speakers, especially with, respect to 126-8F1, I think it's draconian to go after people simply for not carrying a pooper scooper or a bag, and I think that the scenario described really could happen. I think it was described by Mr. Hodgkins, and so I would like to see that part of the new ordinance removed. Also, if a witness doesn't appear, it could be fined. I think I don't even know if that's enforceable under our laws. So I defer to the town solicitor on that, but
Normally, if there's a violation and somebody's cited and they have to appear in municipal court, the municipal court will issue the summonses from municipal court from the respective department to have the witnesses appear. So that's something that.
so we don't really need that because the municipal court already has whatever authority it needs.
Jurisdiction.
Right.
Charter.
So I think that number 3 could also be deleted and should be deleted. I also think that we should probably continue this hearing in order to have an opportunity to take another look at some of these tweaks. I think this is a tremendous job, though, in putting this all together. But it is a very, very large ordinance and it's very comprehensive. So we want to get it right.
Right.
So if we could, look at some of these issues, these tweaks, and get it done properly. Maybe if we continue it to our next meeting, we can have an opportunity to make some of these minor changes.
Yeah, and the issue of the cats on the farm, I think they're already covered because the farms are exempt. If you brought up that point of having cats on the farms are exempt here. It's only residential, I believe.
Well, it's just,
Am I accurate in saying that? Ann?
I did say farm, but I'm thinking people with large properties in general that, don't, 10-acre property. They want 4 cats. What's the big deal? They should be able to have it, in my opinion.
Well, Mr. President, I'm okay with continuous to the next meeting. If you want to make those adjustments and changes, I'm okay with
We
that.
did close the public comment, so there'll be no public comment at next meeting, but we can take action on it.
Okay.
So
If,
Digest everything that everybody said here tonight, incorporate everybody's comments and come back with a revised ordinance.
yeah, I'm okay with that. So can we put on March 21st? Thank you. Make a motion, we do that?
Yes.
all those in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you. Item C, schedule a public hearing on April 4th, 2023 to consider an act upon adopting amendments to the zoning ordinance and zoning map.
So moved.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. What's that?
Tom had something to say.
Oh, I apologize. Right. Licenses, consider, discuss, and act upon approving the annual renewal of 4 bingo licenses as listed as applied, subject to compliance with all state regulations and local ordinances. This is for the Georgiaville Tenants Association, the Old County Road School, the Smithfield Senior Center, and St. Philip Church.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item B, consider, discuss, and act upon approving the annual renewal of 27 holiday licenses, sales licenses as listed as applied, subject to compliance with all state regulations and local ordinances.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Everything's all set?
All set.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Item C, consider, discuss, and act upon approving the annual renewal of a private detective license for Ralph Howe, 4 Anson Brown Road, Johnston, Rhode Island, for his business Information Connection Unlimited, 400D Putnam Pike, Suite 128, Smithfield, Rhode Island, as applied, subject to compliance with all state regulations and local ordinances.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item D. Consider, discuss, and act upon approving the renewal of one mobile food truck license as applied, subject to compliance with all state regulations and local ordinances. This is for Farm to Sandwich LLC, DBA Farm to Sandwich, to sell sandwiches and burgers from a truck with Rhode Island Reg 45029 14 Abbott Street, Cranston, Rhode Island.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Item E, consider, discuss, and act upon approving a one-day beer wine license for the Smithfield Senior Center as follows. St. Patrick's Day party to be held on Thursday, March 16th, 2023, from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. Party will take place at the Smithfield Senior Center, 1 William J. Hawkins Jr. Trail, from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. as applied, subject to all state regulations and local ordinances.
Move passage.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item F, consider, discuss, and act upon approving one-day beer wine license for the Smithfield Senior Center as follows. The Spring Fling to be held on Thursday, April 20th, 2023, from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m.
Move passage.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Final license, consider, discuss, and act upon approving a new victualling only license for Kelcar Q Barbecue, BBQ LLC DBA Kelcar Q BBQ, 375 Putnam Pike, with the hours of operation to be Monday through Sunday, 6 a.m. to 2 a.m. as applied, subject to compliance with all state regulations, local ordinances, and final approval from the Rhode Island Department of Health.
So moved.
Second.
Question, 6 a.m. to 2 a.m.? Is that right? So they're not open 2 a.m. to 6. Interesting. Okay.
And just, so you know, they received their health department today, so.
Oh, excellent.
2 a.m. right?
Question too, because Duncan is open until 4 a.m. in our ordinance, but they close at, I think, midnight.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Old business, there is none. New business? Consider, discuss, and act upon rescinding a request for proposals for construction of the new fire station on George Washington Highway. Hi, Chief.
Good evening, Chief Seltzer Fire Department. As indicated in the memo that I forwarded to the town council, we only received 2 bids. They were extremely high. They're out of range to what we want to do right now, so we want to rescind them as we review the project and look at some other cost savings. So at this point, we will come up with a new package and we are reviewing our options.
Thank you, Chief. Move passage.
Seconded.
Any discussion from the council? No, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you. Item 12, public comment. If anyone would like to come up and comment, they're more than welcome.
Tom Hodgkins, 200 Front and Pike. I wanted to address the proposed zoning amendments that you just scheduled for a hearing. The zoning ordinance Article 11 provides procedure for how amendments to zoning should come to the council. Calls for sponsorship by a council member to be one avenue, or for them to come from the planning board. It's unclear to me how these amendments came about. It's also a requirement for certain other findings and reports from the planner, the town engineer, and findings by the planning board regarding compliance with the comprehensive use plan and also the goals of the zoning ordinance. I don't see that any of that's been provided. I've brought this up to prior councils and prior councils have ignored me on it. So I wanted to bring it up now before we get to a hearing on it. One of the last times I remember this coming up was the end of 2021 when the hearing on the proposed amendments was scheduled. I served a APRA request on the town. asking for the documents, the supporting documents for the reasons for why the ordinance came about. What either the planning board or the council or the planner had considered, what the basis for that was, just whatever information was supporting the proposed ordinance so that I could meaningfully participate in the hearing. I didn't get a timely response from the town prior to the hearing. I got a response after the hearing. And when I did get a response, this is what I got. I also asked for an electronic response to prevent any expense to the town, but the planning board solicitor sent me this instead. And when I did get a response, this is it. All I got was a printout of the planning board agendas and meeting minutes. That's it. For these, there were several zoning ordinance amendments that were considered at that point back at the end of 2021. I don't even consider this any sort of legitimate attempt to comply with the APRA obligations of the town in terms of what they're supposed to provide. So I didn't get to it today. I'll probably do it tomorrow. I'll be serving an APRA request on the town so I can hopefully understand where some of these zoning amendments are coming from, what's been consulted. And I hope that there's a response from the town prior to the hearing date, and I hope that the response is forthcoming. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Were you questioning the animal ordinance?
Yeah.
How it came about?
Yeah.
That was me.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying these zoning amendments. I understand that the animal ordinance was sponsored by you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I understand that because that was in the agenda. The zoning amendments.
No, you specifically said the first time, the animal ordinance.
If I did, I'm sorry, but
Okay.
I'm only referring to the zoning amendments. So sorry for the confusion. Only the zoning amendments, because if you look at the agenda, the prior agenda, I don't know where they're coming from. And frankly, a proposal to reduce the number of voting members on the zoning board that make important decisions for the town. I can't for the life of me think of why that's something we would do in a representative democracy in a government. So I'd like to know who proposed that. So maybe I can talk to them and maybe they can open my eyes. But as to right now, it's a mystery to me how that's come about. So that's all I'm asking for.
The reducing of a committee that, go ahead, Andy.
I'd have to check, but I thought there was some statewide legislation
Yeah.
reducing the number of members required to approve a certain types of variances.
Correct.
He may be talking about that, but we have to chat with Mike Phillips on this and find out how all these amendments were generated or proposed amendments were generated.
Right. That's what I'm asking for as to why they're coming about.
I believe they all came out of planning, but we need to verify that and what are the reasons for them.
Okay. The planning board, you mean?
The planning department probably came up with the recommendations for the proposed
Okay.
zone changes, forward them to the planning board.
Well, it seems like kind of a mystery to me as to how those things just come about. So thank
Because
you.
a lot of times, as far as zoning amendments are concerned, the genesis a lot of times starts with the planning department because they're looking for amendments that are inconsistent with, or they're coming forward with amendments that are inconsistent with state law. In order to make the amendments consistent with state law, they'll wait till they have 5 or 6 things, put them all together and have a public hearing to basically adopt or put it in front of the council to adopt.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, but it's just really not the procedure that's laid out in the zoning ordinance. And I understand if there's a reason why perhaps maybe we should change the zoning ordinance, but for right now, that's the law that we have. So it's a law that we need to
We
follow.
should, because that whole issue about sponsorship
Yeah.
is totally inconsistent with the state enabling act.
Yeah. I mean,
It's
I brought this up for
unconstitutional.
years.
It's
Yeah.
not, it shouldn't even be in there.
Right.
Shouldn't even be in there.
Thanks.
I'm sorry, when did you say this happened?
This was back at the November of 2021.
And who did you talk to?
Boy,
Who did you request?
oh, sorry, I
Answer
served an
from?
APRA request on the town and I got a response
okay.
from the town.
APRA, gotcha.
The not Attorney Galone, the planning department solicitor.
Planning, thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Beth Cerrone, President of the Dog Park Committee. I'm losing my voice, so it's not that I'm upset, but I just want to thank you for trying to take out that $25 fee. Because I've had people at the park say to me, I shouldn't be here. I didn't pay the $25 and I don't want them to feel like that. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any more public comment? Motion to adjourn? Seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.